How white do you think your teeth really are? Let's try the tissue test. Oof, still yellow.
There's toothpaste white and there's Crest 3D White Strips White. They whiten like a $300 professional treatment. And to maintain your brightest smile, try Crest 3D White toothpaste.
Listen, there's a good chance somebody's trying to hack your website right now. You gotta make sure you're covered. I'm talking about enterprise-grade security built.
Shaman in Season of Discovery is one that I'm really excited to talk about. In fact, it's one that I really didn't expect to be quite as excited about. With Shamans already having the ability to DPS and heal, the thought of them ever getting an actual tanking spec was something I didn't think would ever happen. With Season of Discovery and the addition of new runes, which at level 25 being phase 1, you're going to be able to use hands, chest and leg runes, it brings a lot of variety to the Shaman. And quite honestly, changes it completely, but in a good way. Now, I've never been somebody who's like, oh, I really need a Shaman. It's probably the one I've leveled or geared up or DPS'd on or healed on the least out of all of the classes. So why am I excited? Well, to understand that, you just need to look at some of these runes because they are absolutely bonkers. At level 25, you're not going to be able to go too deep in the talent tree. In fact, you're only going to be able to get to the 4th tier, and you're only going to get one in it. But for the longest time in vanilla WoW, Shamans have had some good defensive talents like shield specialization, for example, where with 5 points increasingly on an enhancement Shaman, but now you can actually do it. Let's go through all of the glove runes first. So first of all, you're going to get Lava Burst, where you hurl molten lava at the target, dealing 198 to 256 fire damage, and if your Flame Shock is on the target, Lava Burst will deal a critical strike. That is definitely for those Ellie enjoyers, and to most of us that have played more than just vanilla, it's nothing new. For the enhancement Shamans, you're going to get Lava Lash, where you charge your offhand weapon with lava, instantly dealing 100% offhand weapon damage, and damage is increased by 20% if your offhand weapon is enchanted with Flame Tongue. Instantly, you're like, offhand weapon as a Shaman? We use two-handed weapons in vanilla. Well, you'd be right. Even looking through the talents, we know Weapon Mastery increases the damage you deal with all weapons. You get Storm Strike. You get two-handed axes and maces, so it allows you to use big two-handed weapons, but there's nowhere where you get Dual Wield. Dual Wield wasn't actually added until 2.0.1, and it was a talent. And it was a talent all the way up until Mr. Pandaria, where then it became a passive ability. Now, on the basis it's not added as a rune, it's not added as a talent, it looks like you're going to get it as a passive ability, and it's only about 5 expansions early, so cool. The reason I say it's added as a passive because there's a lot of confusion over Dual Wield Specialization, which is a chest rune, and we'll get to that in just a minute. But next up on the gloves, you get Molten Blast, which is the first introduction of an actual tanking rune for the Shaman. But when you read this, you can do more than tank with it. It blasts enemies in a cone in front of you for 39 to 54 fire damage. This ability generates a high amount of threat, and Flame Shock periodic damage has a 10% chance to reset the cooldown on it. So as you can imagine, even as leveling as enhancement normally, this could be more valuable than Lava Lash, because Lava Lash always has, and probably will be in Season of Discovery, a little bit lackluster. So the ability to use a conal attack and its cooldown is reset even while you're just out soloing gives you a lot of options. This is why I really like the state Shaman looks like it's going to be in Season of Discovery, because none of these are set in stone. There is actually a lot of options. As a Shaman who's going to be tanking, you would imagine Molten Blast is going to be your bread and butter. And then finally, Water Shield. We're all familiar with Water Shield from future expansions, but you're surrounded by 3 globes, granting 1% of your max mana every 5 seconds. When a spell, melee or ranged attack hits the caster, 4% of the max mana is restored to the caster. This expends a water globe, and only 1 globe can be activated every few seconds. Again, you're instantly looking at that thinking, oh great, well that's our Resto Shaman glove rune straight away. That's what you're going to always use. As a Resto Shaman, I agree, you're always going to use it. But there is a world where you could use that as Ellie. If you was using it as Ellie just to keep your mana up all the time and you're not using Lava Burst, you're just going to be using Lightning Bolt instead, keeping shock up, for example, it could be a really good way to reduce the amount of downtime between pulls while you're leveling to 25. Again, this is what I actually love about the Shaman runes. All of these have got a place, no matter what spec you play. Moving on to chest runes, because I alluded to the Dual Wield Specialization rune already. What this actually does is increases your chance to hit with both spells and melee attacks by 5% while dual wielding, and your Storm Strike ability now hits with both weapons. So this is assuming that you can already use dual wield. It's not this rune that actually enables you to use dual wield. And the other interesting thing about this talent is you're getting that 5% hit for spells and melee, which is great. Obviously, there's like 5% hit is absolutely amazing. But what you got to remember in phase 1 is you're not going to have Storm Strike. You don't get that until level 40 because that's at the bottom of the enhancement tree. So for this rune, you are literally only gaining the 5% hit, which could make your decisions a little bit more difficult. But let's find out. Next up for Resto Shamans, and I would say exclusively Resto Shamans, would be Healing Rain. Healing Rain doesn't look like it's going to work the same in Season of Discovery as it does in future expansions, because what it actually does here is it selects an area 15 yards around the target player and heals all of the target player's party members within that area for 20 seconds. Now, Healing Rain in future expansions, where it gets introduced in Cataclysm, actually is just a ground AoE. You don't target it on a player, you just put a ground AoE down on the floor and everybody who stands in it gets healed. This is only party-wide, so you're going to put it on an individual and it looks like everyone who's in that player's party around them will get the heal over 20 seconds. It looks like it is only going to be party-wide going by the tooltip, and the people will need to be stood in that area for the whole 20 seconds to basically get the healing. Next up is Overload, and Overload is absolutely amazing now, because again, it's not only for Ellie Shamans. It gives you Lightning Bolt, Chain Lightning, Chain Heal, Healing Wave, and Lava Burst. A 33% chance to cast a second similar spell on the same target at no additional cost, for half of their damage or healing and 0 threat. Wow. I mean, for Resto Shamans, chain healing and getting Overload procs, that's going to be crazy. And the fact that it works on Lava Burst as well, obviously Lightning Bolt, Chain Lightning we expect, but I love the fact that this has actually been made into a healing rune as well. So you've got a choice between this and Healing Rain. Now, if Healing Rain requires your party to stand in that rune, I would say Overload is the go-to healing talent, as well as, at the moment, it's looking like the go-to elemental talent. And then finally, Shield Mastery, where there's not really any way around this. This is your tanking rune for your chest. Each time you block, you regenerate mana equal to 4% of your max mana, and you gain armor equal to 30% of your shield's armor value, stacking up to 5 times. You also always gain 10% increased chance to block and 15% increased block value. Now, of course, to keep your mana up, it's increasing your armor, it's increasing your block. Like, it's a no-brainer that as a shaman tank, you're going to be using this. But is there a world where actually while you're leveling, you could use this? Because most of the time, if you're fighting a mob and you're an Ellie shaman, they're going to get to you. You know, you'll cast a couple of lightning bolts at range and then they might get to you and hit you a few times. You're going to be using a one-handed shield most likely. This could keep your mana up, but would you sacrifice this for Overload? Probably not. Instead, you'd probably sacrifice Lava Burst on the gloves to get Water Shield, which is going to keep your mana up. So, again, lots of decisions to be made. Do you use Water Shield and Shield Mastery and not worry about getting those Overload procs, which are RNG at the end of the day? It's random, and this just keeps you pumping all the way to 25. And now moving on to the leg runes. Again, these are absolutely huge. Ancestral Guidance looks like it's going to be a really powerful cooldown. I believe it's a couple of minute cooldown, but for the next 10 seconds, 25% of your damage is converted to healing on up to 3 nearby party members. And then 100% of that healing that you've just done is then converted to damage on your most recent Flame Shock target. Just extra damage and you're helping heal. Now, it's nearby party members, so positioning is going to be important when you use this, but it's worth noting when it said damage on your most recent Flame Shock target. So you do need to make sure that you've got Flame Shock on the mob that you actually want benefiting from this extra damage. You know, if you've just had Flame Shock on an ad that's just about to die, you pop this and start nuking the boss, obviously you might miss out on some of this damage. So using it in the right way is going to be important. Earth Shield is going to be pretty much the go-to resto leg rune here because it protects the caster with an earthen shield, reducing casting or channeling time lost when damaged by 30%, and causes attacks to heal the shielded target by 100. This effect only occurs once every few seconds and it's got 3 charges. You can only keep this on one person at a time, and that one person is generally the tank. Now, Earth Shield is nothing new to us. We've seen Earth Shield in loads of expansions, so when we actually start looking at the last 2 runes, you'll see that as a Resto Shaman, this is probably the one you're going to use. I don't see an occasion where you would use this as an Enhancement Shaman or even an Ellie Shaman, but that'll be made obvious when we look at the next 2. Shamanistic Rage has been changed, and for the better. So we know this is a future talent that comes in the game like most of these, or all of them in fact. Shamanistic Rage reduces all damage you take by 20% and you regenerate mana every second for 15 seconds. Mana regenerated per second is equal to 15% of your attack power, 10% of your spell power, or 6% of your healing, whichever value is greatest. So this is really cool that they took a future enhancement talent, which was meant to alleviate enhancement mana problems, and then made it work for Resto and Elemental. So no matter what Shaman spec you are, you can make really good use of this. But don't sleep on the damage reduction portion. You know, the fact that you can use it as a personal cooldown at a time you also need mana is amazing. I wouldn't say this really lends itself to any individual spec. I would say all 3 specs will make use of this at some time or another. And then finally, Way of Earth. This is only going to be used by tanking shamans. While Rockbiter weapon is active on your main hand weapon, you do 100% increased threat, gain 30% increased health, take 10% reduced damage, and you gain 6% reduced chance to be critically hit by melee attacks. So basically, this is making you crit immune. And then finally, Earth Shock taunts targets to attack you and has a separate cooldown from other shock spells, but has its range reduced to melee range. As we work through all the classes, you'll see that any of these tanks that have got ranged abilities by, like, standard, they end up becoming a melee ability as a taunt. So, but that's really cool. I mean, you can see why I'm excited about Shaman now. There is so many options, and I think they're going to be top tier levelers. You know, I mean, they've always been good, don't get me wrong, but this is like absolutely bonkers. If you can get your hands on some of these runes quite early, you're going to have a really good time, and I think you're going to have an amazing time at 25. And I've been saying all along, I'm going to do Paladin and then Druid. I think I'm now going to do Paladin, then Shaman, so that's going to be interesting. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe. I'm diving into all of these in members-only videos, so if you click join, I'm trying to get at least 2 out a week, and we're going to be looking at sort of talent specs, what runes would be good for what situation. It's much more of a, you could almost call it a solo podcast, but just for you members. So thank you to every one of you that have already pressed join, and your names scrolling along the bottom of the screen, and I'll see you on the next one.
Ses yeux sont de printemps qui me font sourire et ça me fait rire. Ses joues sont des torrents, les miennes s'y baignent mais encore pire. Son cœur est une fête, le mien ne veut plus en sortir. Elle est la plus belle saison de ma vie. La plus belle saison de ma vie. C'est un tourbillon, un grand vertige complètement doux. On dit qu'en haute voltige on peut tomber et se rompre le cou. C'est pas mon premier vol, arrête tes bandes de jaloux. C'est la plus belle saison de ma vie. La plus belle saison de ma vie. Les heures sont des rivières qui courent en une folle frénésie. L'amour est liquide clair et nos deux corps sont amphibies. La terre est un brasier, mais pour un moment l'oublier. C'est la plus belle saison de ma vie. La plus belle saison de ma vie. Qu'elle ne plaise à personne, ni du visage ni de l'esprit. Restez en votre automne, l'été tout lent me fait plus envie. Persuadez-vous de mes deux yeux fermés, j'affirme en toute cécité, t'es la plus belle saison de ma vie. La plus belle saison de ma vie. Assombrir quelques beautés, des êtres qui ont peur, qui veulent vous en contaminer. Me protéger des loups, moi qui n'en compte que des amis. T'es la plus belle saison de ma vie. T'es la plus belle saison de ma vie. Nous serons vieux et frêles, peut-être même séparés. Nos têtes pêle-mêle, incapables et usées. Mais aujourd'hui je t'aime, aujourd'hui pour l'éternité. T'es la plus belle saison de ma vie, la plus belle saison de ma
Connect with your customers at the right time, in the right channel, automatically, with our advanced automation tools. Send personalized emails and SMS for every stage of your customer's lifecycle. Chart your own paths from scratch with our Automation Path Builder. Or hit the ground running with our pre-built plug-and-play templates. Reduce manual work, boost engagement, increase your ROI, and have more time for R&R. Put your marketing on autopilot. With less to do, you'll get more done.
Ow. May the eternal sun shine. Strength and honor for the Horde. Strength and honor. For the Horde! Zug zug. Strength!
a chaser. About to get murdered for the paper. Edie, I mean, approach the scene of the caper. Like a loke with low Caesar and a choke. Tongue smoke. We ain't no motherfucking joke. Thug life niggas better be known. We approaching in the wide open gun smoking. No need.